If you have a legal question, you want some legal advice, you want to know something, you need to know something, it's 540-0580.
So want to know more? If you follow these easy tips, you'll be fine. First, obey the law. Laws were made for a reason. Think of them as hints.
You heard that. Think of them as hints. I like that. Chris Rock there, 540-0580. I know we've got some callers calling in right away. In the meantime, throughout the week, make sure you stop in at weekendappointment.com, register as a user. If you look at the front, we're going under a renovation right now. We got tons of new features coming, and I'm really excited about that. By next week, it'll be completely up and running. But if you want to stop by and see what it looks like under renovation, feel free to do so. You can still just click the forum key, and it'll take you right back to the forums that you're familiar with. But we're going to add blogs, allowing me to blog, you to blog, everybody to blog, news, events, and a lot more information, kind of a library for you at weekendappointment.com. And, of course, if you're a registered user, you'll be eligible for our giveaways. Gary, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. Gary.
Problem with the IRS. A couple years ago, I failed to do my taxes, and they kind of caught up with me, and they put a garnishment on my wage system. Since then, I have filed all the taxes, and everything's done with that, and I'm actually getting some refunds. And they accepted that they have all my tax refund. My question is, how do I get my garnishment back?
You mean they've garnished money in excess of what was owed?
Yes. Yes, they garnished. The way I got the understanding was they just want to make sure that they got their taxation due. I'd still been paying taxes out of my paycheck, but because I didn't file,
right,
they went ahead and garnished extra.
Right. Well, ultimately, when you file, you'll show what you paid in, and they should send you back a refund of the difference. But as I always tell people when they call in with tax issues, skip the lawyer and go right to the CPA because they're the ones who can handle that very easily. So go in your yellow pages, or if you want, ask around for a CPA, not H&R Block or someone like that. I mean, they're fine for normal type tax issues. But I usually tell people with special problems with the IRS, just see a CPA. They know all the answers off the top of their head.
Great.
All right?
Thank you so much.
All right, Gary, thanks for calling in. 540-0580, that's our talk line number. You know, first of all, I want to thank everybody for listening today, and I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas because I know everybody's recovering from all the food they ate yesterday and enjoying this wonderful rainy weather. I actually went out and tried to use the muzzle loader this morning. That didn't work so well. Let's see. Who have I got next, Shane? Denny, you're on WHP 580.
Hi.
Hey, Denny, what's going on?
Hey, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Me and my wife's been married for 8 years, okay?
Okay.
Now, she bought a house when we were engaged because I wasn't able to get a loan.
Okay.
Not saying something, but if something was to happen to her, because I've been hearing rumors, what do I need to do anything? Or does the house automatically become mine? Or do I have to fight? I don't know what to do.
Okay, are you currently married?
Yes.
What's the deed say?
It's in her name. It's in her maiden name, actually.
Okay.
They never even changed it to her married name.
Right, but it's property that belongs to her at this time, not in the marital title. If she passes away, her will control that, okay?
Okay.
And it will go to whoever she designates in her will, but hold on for 1 second here because I want to. So normally, just like anybody else, she can leave it to anybody she wants.
Oh, so as long as she writes me, I get the house. I don't have to fight for it.
Well, if she puts you in the will, it's yours, but here's the next thing. Even if she doesn't put you in the will, let's say she leaves the house to me.
Okay.
You can take against the will because as a spouse, whether you're separated or not separated, as long as you're still legally married,
right,
you can go to court and say, that's my wife, and she can't give the property or her things to somebody else without first giving at least, and I think it's the first 30 or 50,000 plus a third of everything else.
Oh, okay.
So
I still have marital
interest in it.
Marital interest, that's the word.
And your marital interest, will be dealt with not through the divorce law. If you did something in the divorce law, now it would. If you wait till she dies, that's done through the laws of testacy. And in this case, you would say that you would take against it. Now, if she dies without a will, her entire estate automatically goes to you.
Say it again?
She dies without a will. As the spouse, you get everything because the laws of intestacy
okay.
will direct everything to you.
Married, I really don't have nothing to worry about.
Well, I mean, she can write you out, and you can lose some value on it.
Do that, but she was just wondering too if we have to get my name put on the deed, or how hard that is to do, or whatnot.
No, you don't need to. You don't need to. And being left to a spouse, there's going to be a zero taxation rate on that for Pennsylvania inheritance tax.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
All right.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Denny.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'm not sure if I could figure out if Denny was separated or still together, and I wasn't sure I was clear on that. 540-0580, that's the talk line number. If you have a legal question, you want to talk about anything, being the day after Christmas, we can always make it open mic. You want to comment on the lack of global warming. Although, the snow melted, so that's probably proof that we are headed to the dark ages because of our abuse of fossil fuels. I'm sure somebody's going to say that. I also want to remind you the Senate snuck the health care through on Christmas Eve in case you haven't woken up and looked at the newspaper in the last 2 days, which was the intent, by the way, to have the vote while we were all in the middle of the holiday so that we might not actually pay attention to what happened. Urge your Congress people, if you want. That's what I'm telling people to do. Call them up and say, strip, we may not be able to get rid of health care, right? But go call them up, call up your House of Representatives and say, strip out all the pork the Senate put in there, all the earmarks, the $3 billion going to Florida, the $500 million going to Massachusetts, the $50 million going here and there and everywhere. Strip that stuff out and call your congressman and say, hey, you said you wouldn't vote for pork, you wouldn't vote for earmarks. You say you need to vote for health care because you're a Democrat and they're twisting your arm, but you got to strip this stuff out before you send it back to conference. I got a few people calling in, I think. 540-0580. We'll get you on here in a second. Shane's behind screening you, but that's okay. He's got lots of important technical things over there to do, and I know that. You'd be amazed at how much equipment they have in this place. Now they've strung Christmas lights in here, too. So, and I see some cookie crumbles down here. That's probably from RJ earlier, I would imagine. Kerry, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. I had a quick question for you. My brother died about a month ago. He has a 3-year-old little girl. My parents have custody of her, and he had the remainder of a trust fund, had about $5,000 in it, that listed my mother as the beneficiary.
Okay.
To transfer that money into a trust fund for Kirsten, for his daughter, do they have to worry about paying penalties, or is there an inheritance tax that's kind of applied to something, something of that nature?
Well, let's see. He left a trust fund to his mother?
Correct.
And I'd have to see how they set that up.
I think that's basically just out of laziness and not changing it over to his
Right.
his daughter's name.
Right. I know when you go downhill, you're looking at a 4.5% tax. Uphill, I think it's the same. And then mom could put it to granddaughter without any problem there, or she could disclaim the gift. And then it could fall through down to the daughter. That way it only goes one direction anyhow. So there's a couple different things you could do. But again, I'd have to see exactly how he set up his trust. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically we'd be looking at a 4.5% tax.
Probably a 4.5% inheritance tax. Of course, you're going to have to file the estate tax return. You're going to have to open the estate at the courthouse, blah, 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 blah. Or you may have to just do the tax return. You may not have to open a estate. You may have to just do a tax return. All right?
All right, great, thanks.
All right, Kerry, thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, that's what those knicky-knack things that are a pain in the butt sometimes. You got $5,000, $10,000 in an account. You got one beneficiary on it. You really wanted another. We see this a lot with IRAs where people don't update their beneficiaries on their IRAs because they're hired, on a Tuesday, and the HR guy throws a bunch of paperwork in front of you. You say, well, who's going to be my beneficiary? I'll put down my brother, since I don't know who else I want to put on there. And then 6 months later, you dutifully forget you ever even did beneficiary paperwork. 25 years go by. One day you die, your wife wakes up and discovers that your entire IRA went to your brother who hates your wife. And how'd that happen? Well, it happened because people don't pay attention to who the beneficiaries are on a lot of that stuff. And it is problematic when the dollar volumes get large. And the other person isn't really willing to shift it back to the people who it really should belong to. Ryan, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. I'm going to take a break, and I'll take you after that, okay?
Okay.
All right. And John, hold on too. Yo, 540-0580, 540-0580. If you have a legal question, call in. We'll answer it here on the air. I'm attorney Carl Rominger. I serve the mid-state, and, of course, many have come to see me in my office. I really appreciate it when you do that, and I enjoy representing all the different listeners that we have. And the greatest compliment I get is when somebody says, hey, I listen to the show and I like it. Every once in a while, somebody calls me up and says, what the heck are you talking about? When I was out hunting this morning, they were busting me in the boat about Bob Durgan and I on the property tax issue. I'm sure some of you heard that. As my buddy said, he goes, I understand you're not saying you want to pay the tax. You just think it's a good idea. But he's like, that's going to get you shot. I didn't know if he meant him or me or what. Ryan.
Hi, how you doing, Carl?
What's going on, brother?
I have a question about an installment agreement.
Okay.
Question is, I had a buyer. He didn't follow one of the terms of the agreement, and eventually the property came back to me.
Okay.
And he had a tenant in the property, and I want to know what would be the easiest way to have that tenant removed. The tenant was aware that he was not supposed to be there either.
Right.
So
did he sign
is this a trespasser or what's my remedy?
Did the tenant sign a particular kind of lease?
He doesn't have no lease.
Okay. Your tenant's on month to month.
Okay.
Meaning, just like anybody else in the wide world without a lease, listen up, those of you without leases, you're on month to month, which means you give him 30 days notice to quit, and he got to pack his butt out of there. If he doesn't, you can't take a bulldozer, a crowbar, or gun and extract him yourself.
Right.
Okay, no self-help. You have to go to the district magistrate, or what we call district judges these days, and file a landlord-tenant action and show the judge you gave the 30 days notice to quit, and the judge is going to say, okay, we'll have a hearing on this. He'll come in, and the judge will give you possession.
So that wouldn't be considered simple trespass?
You're not. No, you're not. That's why you have no self-help. And let me explain it this way. I get people, they goof up this way, too. They let a guy move in who says, I'll bring Mrs. Smith, I don't get paid till the 5th. So what I'll do is I'll bring you the security deposit and the first month's rent on the 5th, but I really need to move in on the 2nd because I need a place to put all my stuff. And you give the guy the key, and on the 2nd he moves in, and on the 5th, no money, on the 10th, no money. Once they take possession, and once their foot's in the door, from somebody with apparent authority,
right,
like your former buyer, then you can't kick them out. They are not a trespasser. They are a tenant.
Okay.
All right?
So no matter who had him first, he's mine now.
He's yours.
Okay. I just wanted some clarification on that, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, congratulations, right? That's what you wanted. Right. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Hey, you find a piece of property, there's somebody living in it. You can't pinch the gas line. You can't turn the electric off. You got to just go see the district magistrate. John, you're in WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, John?
Hey, good afternoon, Carl. I got a question for you about divorce real quick.
Okay.
Is it possible to divorce someone without their knowing it?
Well, yes, it is. Although it's not that easy. Theoretically, it happens. And I'll give you an example. Someone came in to see me for a divorce not too long ago, and her husband was last known to live in some Canadian city. Uh-huh. And so we did some due diligence, had a private investigator give us a report saying, I can't find this guy. Right. Then we went to the judge and we said, Judge, this is where he last lived. This is what efforts we've made to try to find him. And the judge says, okay, take out an ad in the Cumberland County Law Journal, take out an ad in the Sentinel, the Patriot, and the Calgary Sun, and take it out twice. And if there's no response, come back to me and I'll enter a divorce decree.
Okay, so in other words, a man and woman married are living in the same house. Let's say it's here in Cumberland County, because
right.
A friend of mine lives here, and I'm trying to help him out on this matter. And his wife can't just go out, and get a lawyer here in Cumberland County and get a divorce against him without him knowing it, even though they're both living together, right?
Right, because he has to be served with the paperwork.
Right.
And somebody's going to have to swear out an affidavit. And one of the little rules is a party can't serve their own paperwork. And part of the reason is to avoid that temptation, A, to lie, and B, to avoid the friction sometimes when two parties serve each other with papers.
Right.
So the lawyer would have to certify that he or she had somebody serve it, or that the post office would certify that they served it on that individual.
Right. Okay, that's all I needed.
All right.
All right, thank you, Carl.
Thank you. And that just kind of is a good launching point, though. If you're out there and you thought you need a divorce and you just don't know where to find the other party, feel free to give us a call. I can help you out with that. I'm amazed by how many people simply don't get divorced because they can't find the other person. And like we were talking earlier, they have certain rights in your estate, etc. And if you leave an old marriage out there, you never know when that person's going to crop up. But I'll bet when there's money involved, they'll crop up when they hear about it. Kay, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's your question?
Is it Kay?
Yep.
Hi. I have one thing to say about the man that has tenants in his house and he
Yes.
wants them out. That will probably be about a 6-month process, because if he gets to the judge and the judge makes a date that they have to be out, he'll probably lose about 6 months of rent.
Yeah, and I would tell you, Kay, I would usually agree with you. I would tell you that if you try to kick a person out the very first instance you realize they're a problem, the shortest you're ever going to get it done is in about 60 days.
Oh, yeah.
90 to 120 days is typical, but 180 days is not that unusual.
If they have kids it's all kinds of things. I usually say six months.
Yeah, and it all depends.
Everything settled.
It all depends, too, which district judge you're dealing with. Some of the offices are very quick and efficient. Some are not as quick or as efficient.
Depends when you get a date to have the
right.
hearing.
And
can depend on a lot of things. But another thing that you said to someone, okay, I'm older, and I married a man that my husband died and his wife died.
Okay.
And they had a small house and about an acre of land, and but the land belonged to his wife.
Okay.
The house belonged to him.
Okay.
Well, when she died, there was no will. So now he owned the house, so there was no problem with that.
Right.
But the property, he didn't, you said that if the man said, well, what happens if,
Were they still married?
No.
Okay.
His wife died and my husband died. So my husband owned the house. His wife that had died owned the land. They just never took care of business and got it put in both of their names, and there was no will,
Right.
And she was young when she died. She was 57, but the property, only half of that property went to him.
Huh. Well, I don't know why that is.
Half went to her children. She had 4 children.
Well, it depends. If maybe she did that in her will and he decided.
There was no will. That's why I called, because I didn't want this man to think what you said. That's not what happened to us.
Yeah, but did he take against the will, I guess, is the question.
Did he take what?
Did he claim his spousal share?
Well, we had to pay taxes.
You pay tax what you got, but I mean, did he go with a lawyer and say, I want to claim my spousal share under the laws of intestacy? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that went down.
Well,
so you don't have to.
Yeah, we went to a lawyer, and all the kids had to sign that they really didn't want anything. We either had to give, when they estimated the house, okay, say it was worth $10,000 and it was worth more than that. I mean, the land, the property.
Right.
So he had $5,000 of it was his, but $5,000 of it was to be divided up between the kids.
Were these kids from a different marriage?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that solves the problem right there. Mm-hmm. When you have kids, when you have biological children from a second marriage or an original marriage, then the way the spousal share goes through intestacy, it gets divided amongst the kids and the original and the new spouse. So your old biological kids can't get automatically zapped out by your new spouse. That perfectly explains your situation.
Yeah, that's
okay. I got to go into the 2:30 break here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. 540-0580, 540-0580. And Kate brought up a good point there, by the way, before we go into break here. That's why every case is a little bit different. In that case, there was a different type of familial relationship going on there where there were biological children of one marriage and a separate marriage later. We have slightly different rules in that circumstance so that the biological children of the original marriage can't be completely written out by somebody claiming a spousal share from a subsequent marriage. See you after the break. 540-0580, Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions on the show Weekend Appointment. I think that's why they call it Weekend Appointment with Carl Rominger. Make sure you go to weekendappointment.com throughout the week. We've got about 1,200 registered users. We'll be announcing the 3 giveaway winners from last week. I'm also going to sweeten the pot and throw in one more $10 Applebee's gift certificate. If you're a registered user, we'll make that drawing probably tomorrow. So you got to be a registered user by, I'll say, noon tomorrow, and we'll make you eligible for that. Of course, if you're already a registered user, you're still eligible. So make sure you log in and check to make sure. We still have a bunch of unclaimed prizes with a deadline of December 31st. So if you haven't logged on and checked to see if you won those gift certificates, I got quite a few of you who haven't checked. I know who you are. And if you don't claim it, you're not going to get it. And then I'm going to go to Applebee's and eat it. Herb, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I have a vegetable garden in the rear of my property where it's...
Is this the point where I interrupt you and tell you the plant doctor was a few hours ago, or no?
Yeah, right. My next-door neighbor, for the sake of privacy, planted a line of arborvitae trees right close to the property line, which is right next to my vegetable garden.
Okay.
He's since sold the property, and the trees continue to grow, such that they now go over the property line, and they're so very tall they're starting to cast shadows on my vegetable garden. Mm-hmm. Do I have any recourse?
Oh boy! This is the classic law school problem with the hotel that builds a giant building that casts a shadow on the beach, so that the hotel down the beach can't get any beachgoers because they can't get any sun. The short answer is at some point the shadow could be considered a nuisance. So you might have recourse there. I mean, your garden was there first, right?
Yes.
And it's foreseeable you plant those. You can't build a spite fence, they always say. You can build a fence, but you can't build a 100-mile-high fence. So short answer is you may have remedy and nuisance. Have you talked to your neighbor about it?
Not yet. I just wanted to make sure what my legal grounds might be before I even go in. And in other words, if I have no hope whatsoever, then I know when to back off.
Right. You have some hope. My thing is, you're going to find out though, if you get into a knockdown, drag out nuisance fight, you guys may end up spending thousands of dollars each to battle it out.
I see.
The other thing to do, I mean, I'll give you a couple suggestions. One is obviously to go with the nuisance suit, but first approach him and see if you can reach an accommodation. And if he or she isn't willing to take them down voluntarily, and I assume you would offer to assist with that or even do it yourself to save them the expense, your other alternative is I'll take them down and then I will plant in replacement, something that'll create a border for you but won't grow taller than X feet, which would protect my garden. So that might be your other accommodation.
Well, that's an excellent idea.
So, yeah, you just always try to think about, how to reach a compromise. And they might say, well, I kind of like having that, that security or that border or whatever.
Yeah, it was more a privacy issue, I think.
And if you can find something that would accommodate that need without casting a shadow on your garden, then everybody's happy. So
okay, we'll have a look at that then. Thank
All right,
you very
Herb.
much.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh boy, those nuisances. That's the famous case of I think it was Spar Ranch versus Spar Ranch and Feedlot versus Sun City, which is that big old-timer community out in Arizona, the place Del Webb built out there. Mr. Webb built this giant development. I'm talking about, we're not talking about like 100 houses. We're talking about thousands of houses. And as it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, they got closer and closer and closer to a feedlot. And of course, not a feedlot like 10 cows, but, one of those feedlots where they feed like 50,000 cows to fatten them up for slaughter. And so he built closer and closer and closer and closer, bigger and bigger and bigger to the big feedlot. And I don't know how many of you are on a farm, have been on a farm, or know anything about what 20 cows can smell like when the wind blows the right direction. And some people say, it doesn't smell that bad. Well, 50,000 cows apparently create an odor. And when the wind was right, people in the who'd bought into the Sun City started to complain. And they went to court and they sued and they said that they needed to remove the feedlot because of the foul odor it created. And the feedlot said, hey, wait a minute, you came to the nuisance. You built beside us knowing this was going to happen. And the court said, well, yes, they did come to the nuisance, but it affects so many people and it affects the development and the ability to grow when we have to make an informed choice here. So Spar, feedlot, you have to move. Mr. Webb, you and your development, your people can stay, and you can complain about the nuisance, and we'll get rid of it for you. So that's what they did, and they did, however, make him pay to relocate it. But that was a great example of somebody, and I'm sure Bob Durgan's head would explode, somebody who was just doing their own thing on their own land for years, and some neighbor builds next door, starts complaining, and then wins in court. It's called coming to the nuisance. That's often a defense, but in that case, that was one of the major first cases to find that the nuisance had to give way. And you notice how the nuisance happens to be the, not the giant developer with 100,000 of potential lots to develop, but rather the farmer, although not a real small family farm, a giant feedlot got moved. So that's coming to the nuisance. So you never know where a nuisance is going to shake out. John, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Enjoy your show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening.
I heard you say one time that if a relative can give you a weapon,
okay,
as a present, and there's nothing unlawful about it.
Well, if you're talking about long arms, anybody can give anybody a long arm. Knives,
rifle, right?
Right. Handguns have to be transferred at a registered gun dealer through the state police. But we did talk about this one time on the air. We had some gun dealers talk to us about it. If you will, like if Grandpa dies, his son can take the gun without having to go see the state. In other words, there are ways to come into possession of handguns that don't require state police transfer paperwork, but it's generally through a course of a family. But I think if a living relative simply wants to give one to another relative, you still have to go get it exchanged. You still have to go get it registered with the state police.
Okay, and if you got, because I had like a psycho thing, for a while.
Right.
Because I was over medicated, and I think that's what's holding me up from buying a weapon.
Now, if that happens, we need to take a look at it because you might be able to get that expunged or remedied so that would be removed so it wouldn't be a prohibition anymore. It all depends on the final disposition. But a lot of times when people are involuntarily committed, it's done in such a way that if certain findings aren't made, you can get it expunged so it won't affect your ability to buy a firearm.
What if you voluntarily admitted yourself?
Boy, you know what? I haven't researched that one. I suspect it's going to create some kind of problem, but I'm not sure if it's a permanent disabling matter or not. I know somebody I could talk to about that, but why don't you go to weekendappointment.com, post it as a question on there, and I'll find you an answer.
All right, okay.
If you do that for me,
and I'll wait a little while so that you can research.
Yeah, but post it on there. That way, I'll remember to research. If you don't post it on there, I'll forget.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening, brother.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. Here's next. There's an order to these callers. I mean, we don't want you on hold forever. I try to get to you in the order you called in. Rich, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. I have a question about a recently turned 18-year-old.
Okay.
I've talked to you about this young lady before, and she's gotten in a little bit of minor trouble with the law. My question is, without sounding mean or rude or whatever, what's the legality of, now that she is 18 but still in high school, to me putting her out of my house?
Well, the answer is technically you have a duty to support till they're emancipated from either 18 or out of high school. But the duty to provide housing, I think at that stage, if the child's got problems, I think you can remove them from the house. I'm trying to remember the exact standard for that. I know if they're a safety issue, you can definitely do it. Behavioral issues, I think, have to rise to a certain level. But 18-year-old, I don't think you have a duty to keep. You may have a duty to pay child support on an 18-year-old, and if that kid's on their own, each parent might have to pay support to whoever the caregiver is until they're out of high school. But nonetheless, I don't think you have to maintain them in your home at 18 years of age, even if they are in high school.
Okay.
Although I don't think you can literally just kick them out. I think you might have to actually evict them because they're kind of like that tenant we talked about earlier. This is the place they've lived most recently lawfully, and you can't literally just throw people out on the street. If that's your intent, you've got to either broker a peace to get them out, like, here's a security deposit and 1 month's rent. Congratulations, you're on your own. Or here's your 30-day notice to quit, and if you won't leave, I'll have the constable throw you out.
So it's not quite as easy as get the hell out of my house.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that because that's where they live, right?
Right.
Once you live somewhere, you got to go through judicial process to remove somebody from living quarters.
Although she does tend to spend time at a friend's, sometimes weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Would that make any difference?
Well, it just depends. I mean, if I guess she wanted to sue you later and said, this is where I live, and you unilaterally tossed me out, she might find that you did that. It's an individual factual question. I mean, if she's essentially not living there anymore, then, probably no harm, no foul. But if she's actually living there in reality, then, But I try to broker the peace. My advice usually on something like that is, okay, here, sign right here, agreeing you're not going to live here anymore, and I'll give you a stipend to get your new life started.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right, well, thank you, Carl.
All right, Rich. Thank you very much. I'm going to go into break, folks, and when I come back, I'll talk with Joe and Bob. Hey, Shane, I decided. You want to sing a song with me?
Yeah, if you want to, we can.
It's a deal.
We're a couple of misfits. We're a couple of misfits. What's the matter with misfits? That's where we fit in.
I think we're pretty good.
It wasn't too bad. I liked it.
Next time you take the acapella. Joe, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. You there, Joe?
Hey, am I there?
Yeah, you're on. You're on live, man. You're on the air.
All right, that's great. Hey, question. Maybe it's been done. I don't know, but this is about property tax and the legality.
Okay.
Can somebody argue that, in essence, I mean, the net effect when you boil down to it is if you own your property right out, you don't have a mortgage, you own it fair and square. The net effect is if you don't keep paying money to the government or municipality, whatever, school board, they take it from you. That really challenges the essence of ownership. The net effect is you are perpetually paying rent to some agency. You never own it. It's like being, like early.
See, it's a conceptual.
Argue that.
Right, but that conceptual construct has been rejected by the law and the courts because what we say is you own it, but you owe a tax on it, and your failure to pay that tax is secured against the ownership interest in it, just like your mortgage would be.
Yeah, but in essence, they're really playing a nasty game because you really never own it. If you're a senior and that's your own home, I mean, I'm looking at it. One of these days, I'm going to.
But you never
lose my home because I won't be able to pay the property taxes.
Right. I sympathize with you. I do. But the problem is conceptually, we never really own anything except to the extent that the law recognizes our ownership. And so a lawyer or a judge will tell you, well, you own it, but you own it subject to certain restrictions, certain taxes, and our right to take it away at any time constitutionally simply by using the due process of law and paying you just compensation if we want to take it. So you don't actually ever own land in a way that is inalienable.
Yeah, well, all right. I'm not happy with the answer.
I know. And, but it's always like this. It's the same way the courts have said, okay, driving is a privilege, not a right. So
there
PennDOT
has to be some other example out there that basically proves the argument, and they're just haven't found it. I don't know.
Well, but like I say, I mean, it all depends on how you want to. I always tell people it's gobbledygook, and what I mean by that, I think Durgan will use that word once in a while too. But the point is this: it's just whatever it is. It is what we say it is, and so law is just words, and it's just what everybody agrees it's going to be. And when I say everybody, I mean that immovable. It's not because the law sometimes
people can't work forever, and they reach a point where they're going to need to at least be able to keep their primary residence. I'm not saying if you're a real estate guy and you have lots of residents, but if that's your sole house, how can they keep that over you? It just doesn't seem.
And that's where a lot of states have a homestead exemption, or I know, and I have my mother in studio, and she's done some tax assessment work over the years in New York State, and they have something called a STAR program up there that she administrates that allows you to remove yourself from paying school tax for certain people, and particularly the elderly. So there are things out there that different states have employed. Pennsylvania, the reality here in Pennsylvania is the state keeps sending unfunded mandates down the hill. So they realistically have created an environment where we can't give people homestead exemptions, and we got to suck as much tax as we possibly can in because we're spending money left and right.
Well, I'm for maybe shifting it to if you're a wage earner, then that's where it goes. As long as I'm earning a wage, let my taxes go towards supporting whatever the property taxes are doing now. Because one day when you're old and you can't be a wage earner, you just can't survive.
Yeah.
The other thing we mentioned property tax relief. I actually talked to Bob about this about a week or so ago. They're actually dangling this table games in front of everybody now, saying how, now we need the table games so we can fund, this or keep jobs or reimburse tuition. And yet they still never really came through with meaningful property tax relief. And it's just like
they never will.
How short is the memory of people?
Let me tell you something. And here's why we like historically we like to use land as a tax base because land doesn't get up and walk away. And the problem is when you use wage earners, you can run into problems where wage earners just go, you know what, I don't like the local tax rate around here, so I'm going to move 20 miles. And suddenly the school district loses a whole bunch of tax revenue, et cetera. But I'm going to turn back to the gambling thing. That's ridiculous. Let me explain to you how this is going to work. No way, anyhow, is gambling going to make this state any money because when Atlantic City had gambling and Vegas had gambling, I would get in a plane and I would fly to Las Vegas and gamble my little butt off, or I would get in a car and drive to Atlantic City, right? And me and a gazillion other people. Well, when all the gambling's local, right? I mean, I don't need to go to Vegas. I'll just go drive down the street and gamble here.
Sure.
All you're doing is sucking the money out of the locals who would have spent it. Instead of, because I can't be in Vegas every day, I might have actually gone to downtown Harrisburg and bought a dinner, but instead I'll just eat my sloppy meal at the casino because I'm out there losing all my money. And there's no net gain from it. It's ridiculous. When there's two states doing it, when you're the only...
It's ridiculous. Even like the lottery, which I agree, it's a voluntary tax.
On the mathematically illiterate. Let me tell you about the lottery, too. Do you know how much lottery money the lottery actually provides? Like in states where it does education, it provides less than 0.5% of their education funds.
Too much operating costs. It's like a big black box that it disappears in. All the money that gets sucked into the lottery management, senior citizens should ride around driving Mercedes Benz with chauffeurs.
Do you know who do you know who spends the most money promoting what a good idea the lotteries are? The lotteries themselves. They spend billions every year advertising all the benefits that they allegedly provide. It's a great article a few years back in the Wall Street Journal on that. I'll tell you what, next time I fill in for Durgan, be sure and call in because we can expand on this ad nauseum, okay?
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. It's
all right.
Great what you're doing, and try to figure out a way to keep seniors from losing their homes. That's a good thing. Hey, take it easy.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Bye.
All right. I hate to get anybody off the air. I really do. Bob, you've been holding forever. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Yeah, this is Bob. Merry Christmas to you. You got a great program.
Thank you very much.
Deals with gifts to children or relatives, and whether that gift needs to be designated once you go. I think it's now either 12 or 13,000 per year. Does that have to be identified and sent to the IRS, or have your lawyer verify it, or what do you do with that?
There's only gift tax payable if it exceeds a certain amount. I don't think you have to send anything in. Again, we'd have to talk with the CPA about that. But my understanding of it, my working understanding of it always was, is if it's in excess of that, you got to file the gift tax. Otherwise, you just keep records of it. And if somebody were to question it later, it's sort of like the idea of when they come to audit you and you say, okay, here's the checks I wrote and here's how much I gave each kid each year, and I keep my stuff back so many years, which I think is 7 years. I don't think you have a problem.
Oh, okay, that's great.
But we do recommend, and I know this when we do some estate plans, creating like a planned giving document that basically says, here's what I'm going to do when. And that helps you know what to do when, and it also acts as evidence of what your intent was.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea. I have to call you sometime. The other thing is a foundation, and I guess I don't know how many people create foundations, but I've seen that the Hines and the Careys and the Kennedys, very interesting. They're all against the inheritance tax being eliminated, but they all have these phenomenal foundations. Their kids work there forever, making a lot of money. How can a small person, is it possible for a small person to start? I guess that's pretty hard.
You can, but it's very expensive. Here's what I've been told. I've been told that if you make less than, say, $40,000 a year, you might be able to completely avoid tax. If you make more than $2 million a year, you might be able to completely avoid tax. Anywhere in between, and you're stuck. All right, there's my music. I got to go.
Okay, Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's. Folks, I'll be back next Saturday. As always, go to weekendappointment.com. Dan, I'm sorry I couldn't pick you up. Go to weekendappointment.com. Post your questions throughout the week. And, of course, feel free to call me in my office anytime you want. I will see you next Saturday. Hopefully I'll have a good deer report for you.